Hello and welcome everyone to the newest wrestling podcast out there. Welcome to the RAW K-Nection. I'm your host K-Nection. Isn't that convenient? Just want to start off that I'm excited to kick off the first episode and hopefully many more to come. But that's enough about me. Let's talk about Raw. It started off with the very first segment explaining the rules of the draft, or the brand extension as you would. The rule number one is Raw is getting the first pick. I kind of seen that coming. It will most likely be Roman Reigns or maybe Dean Ambrose, I'm guessing. Rule number two is for every two SmackDown Live picks, Raw gets 3 picks. Well, now, think about that for a second. First of all, I'm guessing that the new name of the show is SmackDown Live. So I guess we're establishing that SmackDown Live now. Second, my mind was a bit racked by that, but since Raw has 3 hours of fill, it makes pretty much good sense. You gotta fill more talent on the bigger show. Moving on, Rule 3 states that the tag teams count as one pick unless a commissioner/general manager only wants one member of the team. Now, that's pretty interesting. I think it's safe to say that there will be some splits. Let's hope that Golden Truth is one of them. Finally, rule number 4 states that 6 draft picks will be made off the NXT roster. That is odd if you think about it. I mean, I think they should have not even put that out there, really. I mean, now we know there are 6 people going to be called up, and in my opinion, I think that would have been better as left as a surprise. Moving on, the first segment opens up with Stephanie coming out to the ring in all of her overbearing bitchiness. Shane thankfully interrupts her before she could even complete a sentence. They banter back and forth about whose show is going to be better. Stephanie announces that Raw will feature the Cruiserweight division exclusively. I say it's a good thing because they need to fill 3 hours with more than just Roman Reigns vignettes. So that was a smart move in my opinion. But then they drop the bombshells. They go on and announce the big one, their general managers. Stephanie announces her general manager is none other than the hardcore legend Mick freaking Foley. This gets a huge pop around the arena. Mick comes out and even gets another cheap pop by saying he's glad to be in Providence, Rhode Island with that big old thumb sticking up. Mick done a good job. He talked about how he was instrumental in putting the final nail in the coffin when it came to WCW. There's only one problem with that, Mick. Too bad the average viewer nowadays has never even seen a WCW show live. So I'm not sure why WWE continued to kick the horse 16 years after it's been bought out. Shane turned around and announces his general manager, but the crowd obviously reads the dirt sheets because they knew who was coming a mile away. Because you heard yes chants in the middle of him even talking. It was none other than Daniel Bryan. He's the new general manager of SmackDown Live. Let that soak in for a second. Daniel freaking Bryan. Just walking charisma is what he is. Daniel was talking about how SmackDown Live is the underdog just like himself, and that's why he's answered the phone call from Shane and really taking a liking to this role already. My perception is that and this is pure speculation obviously, but Raw seems to already be built as the older established show, given their GM's Mick Foley. While SmackDown sounds like it's going to be like one for the new guard, well, other than the Cruiserweights, because the older established talent need people to squash every week while building up to their pay-per-views. Oh God, I just realized something. Maybe I'm not going to like seeing the Cruiserweights exclusively on Raw. Moving on. Okay, after those shocking announcements, there's a graphic put on the screen that announces a WWE Championship match between Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins later on tonight. Finally, you give us a reason to tune into the last hour. Good job, WWE. I really doubt they will flip the title right before Battleground, but after the 2 past weeks on Raw, ratings are probably in the slums, so I wouldn't be surprised either way if they actually do a title change. I mean, try to spur up some ratings maybe. Alright, now the first match tonight was a tag team match between Chris Jericho and Kevin Owens versus Sami Zayn and Cesaro. It was a really good show opener. I mean, I'll mention there was two things that stood out to me in this match. The first was Kevin Owens hamming it up in front of the camera to rub a little salt in the wounds of a knocked out Sami Zayn, and the other was a botched move interruption where Cesaro was swinging Jericho. Now what happened here was like Cesaro was like swinging Jericho and Kevin was doing the heel thing to break it up, but Jericho ended up swinging into Kevin, so he kind of like half sold and kind of just shrugged it off at the same time. It looked a bit messy, but they recovered pretty quickly, and the finish was Sammy rolling up Chris Jericho for the 3 count. I say in that one, you know, the right guy got the right win in the right way. I mean, it was a C match overall, and it served as a really good, solid show opener. Then we cut to a 2-minute backstage segment of Daniel Bryan walking through the back, talking with some of the mid-card. Then out comes Stephanie to attempt to emasculate another person on the live TV, because that is all she's good for apparently. Let me just say that Stephanie needs to not impose herself into almost everything that goes on in the show, because it's feeling like new era, but same old shit. Pardon my French there, but she is really serving no purpose at all, really. I mean, the woman goes around building it heat with the crowd every show and every other segment, most shows, and there is never a payoff. Good bad guys get old very quickly if there is nobody to give the heel their comeuppance. You know, back in the Attitude Era, she was getting rock bottomed here, stunnered there. I mean, she didn't seem tiring to put up with because she was constantly getting her comeuppance. But now, since we're in this PG era, you know, this well, not era anymore, I guess, just PG rated television, there's no male and female violence anymore, and that pretty much just generally means that she just ends up getting go away heat with me and probably every other viewer watching. I went too far, I'm going to go back on subject. They threw a couple zingers at each other left and right, but Daniel did do a good job of avoiding Hurricane Stephanie and left with his balls intact. Good for you, Daniel. Good for you. The next match was Alberto Del Rio versus Darren Young, with Miz and Maurice at the commentary table. This match was nothing to write home about. It was very quick, maybe even under 5 minutes, which is showing how far Del Rio is falling out of the graces of Vince, because he lost the match via bridging roll-up. I mean, first of all, why does Darren Young even have this gimmick? I don't even get the whole, you know, what makes Darren Young great again. I mean, I'm not trying to be mean, but when was he ever great to begin with? This gimmick should have been Damien Sandow's, in my opinion. I mean, honestly, Damien Sandow, the fans actually liked him, and the guy was even a Money in the Bank winner. I mean, how can creative not have anything for Sandow but punish us with those awful segments week after week of Darren answering a pre-recorded Backlund yelling at him? I mean, I'm sorry to get off track, and my rant is apparently lasting longer than the match itself, but I guess it does what it was supposed to by giving Darren Young a W going into Battleground. I give the match an E because of the short amount of time. The reason it's not getting an F is because I didn't even have to listen to Bob Backlund yelling like George Costanza this time, or they get away with a freebie on this one. The next segment was a combination of John Cena, Cass and Enzo, The Club, and New Day getting way too much mic time. Nah, kid. They were great. There was a lot of zingers getting thrown at The Club, mostly. And John Cena was looking like Farther Time, just not getting Enzo and Cass's thing at all. You know, he's confused about the whole how you doing thing. It was kind of weird. I mean, I guess he is Gramps compared to the rest of the guys. It was entertaining for the most part, but it seemed to drag a bit, especially when the club was talking. It was all right though. I mean, it was really good. I'm not crapping on it whatsoever. I mean, it was really good. All right, after commercial break, leading from that was the next segment. It was a 12-man tag match with faces versus heels. The Wyatts got added to the heel team. They weren't necessarily the promo before, but then got. I guess they didn't really fit with all the funny haha going along. But the match did a really good job of building to the respective matches of Battleground. They had plenty of time of fleshing it out, and just when the match felt like it was about to be too long, they did that spot where everybody gets their shit in, and it's repeated finishers over and over again. That little finisher fest thing, it always does well with crowds. Ended up ending with AJ Styles getting the Styles Clash on Enzo for the victory. All in all, it was a C match, perfectly servable for TV. Okay, up next, there was a pre-tape promo that Seth cut in an empty arena. It was pretty good and did a good job of building the tension, but towards the main event of the evening. One thing I have to point out on this show is that they are doing a really good job of selling the last hour of Raw. They keep having segments that is giving you a reason to tune in, and this is the first Raw in a long time that doesn't feel like a chore to watch. Personally, I would usually catch the 90-minute version of Raw on Hulu, but this has done a really good job so far up to this point of moving on through and keep the ball rolling and stuff like that. So I'm gonna give WWE props for today. The next segment was Shane questioning Mick on his allegiance with Stephanie. Mick gave a very political answer, said that she has drive and passion and is very passionate. Shane makes a point that he thinks that she chose Mick because not only can he relate to the crowd, but he may be easily manipulated by her. Mick just rebutted, that he went into this business relationship with eyes wide open and knows what he's doing. It's going to be interesting to see where they go with this in the following weeks. Next up was a squash match. Baron Corbin just bullying Sin Cara. The announcers barely had time to even mention that the Lucha Dragons are no longer a team and will be drafted as separate units before Baron ended the match with an end of days. I give the match a D because it done the job of give Baron a different opponent to feed him, but at the same time, Sin Cara is looking like it looks like what's going to happen probably to I'm assuming the other cruiserweights that are coming to Raw when they face somebody out of the weight division. They're going to look competitive against each other, but then the second they face anybody that's heavier than them, they're just going to get their thumb just printed down. They're just going to get their face rubbed into the mat, Baron continued on beating Sin Cara after the match, and then when none other than Kalisto came out to save Baron, to save Sin Cara, Baron just started beating on him. Baron is a new Ryback, I guess, so Vince is going to feed him more cruiserweights. The next match is another short piss break, and that's an insult because of who was involved in this. It was a team of Sasha Banks and Becky Lynch versus Charlotte and Dana Brooke. The match barely went anywhere when Natalya came out and beat on Becky Lynch, and I guess to extend that feud, I'm guessing. I give the match an E because all it did was advance storylines, but it could have been easily missed. This next segment was actually a nod to the old Shield days. It was Dean Ambrose taking a handheld camera and declaring that he's going to win tonight's main event and going to beat his former Shield brothers this Sunday at Battleground. I'm pretty hyped myself for the Shield triple threat, but I think this was the first big mistake that they made tonight, because Dean inadvertently just said the main event of tonight doesn't matter without saying as much. He pretty much it doesn't matter what happens tonight. I'm going to go on and I'm going to, I'm going to keep that title at Battleground. So he pretty much just already wrote off the main event without even saying it. I like Dean, but he flubbed up that one. Okay, next segment opens up with Lana doing her Ricardo Rodriguez thing now. The one improvement I will say that is that Lana is way better looking than Ricardo could ever be. Anyway, it was a throwaway tag match between Rusev and Sheamus versus Dolph Ziggler and Zack Ryder. It did its job of continuing on the feud of Zack and Rusev, but was really short given who was competing. Rusev ended up beating Dolph Ziggler clean with an accolade, and that pretty much makes me give this match a D. It did its job. Um, it did its job, but could have been longer to build Zack up as a contender. And anyone thinking that he is coming out of Battleground as the new United States champion is on major drugs. I'm not even talking about the kind that Roman and Brock take either. The next segment was a hype video package. First one they actually done, and it was damn near close to the end of the show. They usually done 4 by now, so I was pretty shocked. It was building up Randy Orton. These are always cool, I guess, but it really did nothing. Moving on from there, the next segment was talking about John Cena hosting the ESPYs. It did a good job promoting John, showcasing his little funny side or whatever. Ha ha ha, knee slappers. Oh, sports jokes. Anyway, the announcers talked about the rules of the draft again. They literally added nothing to it. But then it rolls into Daniel and Mick Foley. They have a very interesting promo here. They did a fantastic job building up tension and selling the whole competition thing between the brands. I'm real excited to see where these two guys do for their shows. I mean, they did a good job of getting me into this. Let's see here. The next and final segment was the main event finally. Seth Rollins versus Dean Ambrose for that WWE Championship, because it's no longer the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. But it had a slow build vibe to it. There was a ton of rest holds at the beginning, which took the crowd and myself out of it. But they did a really good job of bringing them back in with 2 false finishes. I mean, the first is Seth putting his foot on the ropes after dirty deeds, and the second, which was really shocking, was Dean kicking out of a pedigree right in the middle of the ring. I mean, this even shocked the crowd that was there because it even spurred a holy shit chant. As good as the build to the match was, the ending I can't say held up to the rest of the match itself. All good things come to the end, I guess, because since it's free TV, nothing ever comes out clean. And we have a really dusty finish at the end of the show. They have a ref bump, and the dizzy ref counted the shoulders of both men laying down on the ground, laying down the mat. Steph goes into the ring with her overbearing bitchiness as usual. She declares Seth Rollins the champion. This seemed to take the air out of the crowd and me, because we all know what's going to happen. It's we're going to tune in to SmackDown Live tomorrow, and it's going to be a whole thing where Dean's going to be like, I was screwed out of this, and Stephanie is a bitch, and blah blah blah. And we're going to end up getting a rematch for the main event of SmackDown Live, which I can see him go again. I just hope it they don't need to. I know they gave it a big fight feel, but they don't need to start the match that slow. They kind of they took the gas out of the crowd. Me myself too, but I'm going to give the match a C. It wasn't the best main event they could do on Raw, but it certainly didn't. It certainly was one of the better shows, if not the match of the night. I give the whole show a C, which in my opinion is sad because it was one of the best Raws this year, but it has such a mediocre score, which is not good for Raw. But yeah. But that concludes our podcast for today of the RAW K-Nection. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and tune in tomorrow for my thoughts on the draft and SmackDown Live on the new podcast, SmackDown K-Nection. See you next time.